This is a very brief description of chapters 8, 9, and 10 of the Lotus Sutra, as recited in a previous video. These descriptions are taken from Hurvitz's translation in his preface, where he says regarding chapter 8 that the Buddha preaches future Buddhahood of more Shravakas, who relate the following parable. A person sewed a jewel into one corner of his friend's garment. The friend, not aware of this, made no attempt to use the jewel, even when in serious straits. Then the man who had sewed it into his garment pointed it out to him, and thus enabled him to get out of his difficulties. Just so, say the disciples, is the Buddha. He proffers ultimate salvation to the beings, but they, unaware of it, do not avail themselves of it. The Arhat, thinking himself to have attained nirvana, receives an unexpected favor from the Buddha when the latter points out to him the existence of a higher form of salvation which is available to him. And then in chapter 9, Hurvitz says, more prophecies of future Buddhahood. And then in chapter 10, the Buddha now tells his listeners of the merit that lies in store for whoever shows the proper veneration to the lotus. So what we've got is a continuation of this theme that the earlier teachings of the Buddha, which at that time had been widely accepted and focused primarily on the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and the 12-fold chain of causation, that these teachings were provisional, that these teachings were skillful means to draw followers or disciples on the path toward liberation, but that attainment of freedom from attachment or insight of the dynamics of causes and conditions, that these attainments did not represent the ultimate attainment. That what he's saying in this sutra, and in particular in these couple of chapters 8 and 9, is that previously he had been communicating a more advanced form of the teaching, but that these disciples had not really latched onto it. It had not clicked for them. They had not taken advantage of it. And that higher form of teaching essentially represented the potential that they had to attain Buddhahood. Not only the potential, but that now he was predicting they would attain Buddhahood, which he is now preaching to be the ultimate attainment. And of course, the whole point of this is not to emphasize the idea of attainment of anything. The idea here really is to point to a path of altruism, a path of concern for the welfare of beings as a whole, as being superior. And in this context, what the Mahayana Buddhists were doing, in effect, was pointing to the spirit of Sakyamuni's teaching by virtue of the fact of how Sakyamuni spent his entire career, his entire life after having attained enlightenment. Namely, going about preaching, helping people, everyday people with their suffering, and teaching the monks how to transcend the trap of the illusion of individual ego. And in chapter 10, which is the chapter about the teacher or the preacher, he's really trying to inspire those Shravakas who now have had their Buddhahood predicted and who now view themselves on the Bodhisattva path, to inspire them to teach this greater Mahayana version of the Dharma. And in addition is touting the merit associated with so doing. Now, here again, just like attainment is just a word, merit is just a word, and in reality, there's no merit, just as Bodhidharma said to the emperor. But again, the purpose of the Lotus Sutra is to seduce potential followers toward the idea that there can be benefit, that there can be attainment, that there can be merit. And then once this path is undertaken, after a certain point, there's a realization that, just as is said in the earlier form of teaching, that this is a raft to get to the other shore, but that once the person is at the other shore, that the raft is to be discarded.